Malcolm McDonald, nobody else has got number 9.
Really? That's interesting.
Yeah.
It's under GDPR. Please, we don't mind.
If I don't do it, I'll forget. Anyway, I'll cross you off then. How are you keeping? Very well.
This is Enfield. No, I get 19.
All I need now is a Kevin Tully.
Got a bit of powder on the...
Oh, it's what to do, yeah? I saw Ricky
Yeah, let's have them. And come on, let's make some noise for our Tangerine heroes from the 1970s. As they're continuing to file in, I'll tell you who we've got with us tonight. We've got Alan Ainsgo, Terry Alcott, Billy Bentley, Mickey Burns, Keith Dyson, Tony Green, Dave Hatton, Pete Hardcastle, Tommy Hutchinson, Glyn James, Stuart Parker, Pete Nicholson, Clive Natteras, Alan Taylor, Billy Rafferty, Dennis Wan and Brian Wilson. Right, I'm going to hand over to our photographer to organise them.
You ready, guys? Three flashes. Right. All eyes open.
Thank you so much.
Stay there, because all the people want to take their own photographs with their mobiles. Anybody want to take a photograph? Do it now.
Right, okay, I think we're all done on the photos, guys, so you can now all stand at ease and relax and come down off the stage. Join your loved one. Come on, let's have a big hand for these guys. You don't know what effort it was for them to come 2 floors up.
Right, I'll get him to do it.
Unfortunately, his mind's gone as well.
You're going to get right as cramp tonight, aren't you? You're not getting better, do you?
Thank you.
Oh, you've done well. You've done well.
It's not bad though, is it?
Perfect, yeah. You're going to auction it off, or is it just for you?
No, it's more than money, isn't it? Happy days. Especially when we're jumping to sign it, yeah.
Some of the players that we've got here in the room, I'm going to invite them up onto the stage. And we're just going to have a little bit of a chat about their memories, their recollections of the Anglo-Italian Cup competitions. So Alan Ainsgo. Alan Ainsgo. Come on, Alan. Alan was the baby of the team. Dennis Wan, come on, come and join me up here. Pete Nicholson. Pete Nicholson, come on, come and join me up here. Dave Hatton, do you want to join us? Very good. And let's have a big hand, please. Welcoming back to Blackpool Football Club for the first time since 1974, Mickey Burns. Right. I'll tell you what. Come on. Right. 1971. Blackpool conquered Europe. What a year. What do you mean? What are you laughing at? We conquered Europe in 71. I want to hear all about it. Anybody got any stories? You can, Dave. Come on. What was it like? What was it like? Seriously now, what was it like in that stadium in Italy?
The team we had, we were good lads, all helping one another, and it was a tremendous experience to go there and in Bologna win that game, full house, beautiful day, and when the game finished and it was 1 each, everybody virtually had cramp. It was that hot. I think some doctor said you could lose £12 in that one game.
Is that what you bet on us? £12.
Sorry?
Is that how much you'd bet on us? Oh, £12 in weight. Sorry, Dave. Go on.
Yeah, 12, and everybody had cramp. Everybody going on the floor, and everybody's helping one another. But it was a tremendous experience that I've never had in my life in football. So at the end of the day, the fans that went that year, they helped us win the cup. So,
and it's always the fans who get behind you when you're at Blackpool.
It's always that. And at the end of the game, we were throwing sticks of rock to the Italian supporters.
How hard were you
they were
throwing them?
loving all that. And it was like Blackpool Rock, here we come, and there we are.
Good. Well, just carrying on with the game before we talk about anything else sort of behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Just pass it over to Mickey, because of course Mickey Burns scored the goal that brought the cup home. What are your memories of it, Mickey?
I think my main memories of the game itself were the heat. It was horrendous, the heat. I mean, we kicked off at 2 o'clock in the afternoon in June in Italy, which is unheard of.
Do you think there was a bit of gamesmanship going on there?
Well, Gigi Porinacci was in charge, so I think anybody that can remember him from the 1960s will remember Gigi as being the guy that fixed everything. But that game wasn't fixed. It was a tremendous result for Blackpool against a side, that were in the Italian First Division and playing on their own ground on a hot afternoon. It really was hot.
Was it hostile, the crowd?
I think we were more worried about the heat than the crowd. It was just hot. I think when you get used to playing away from home, you play half your games away from home, so you're playing against big crowds. And that year we'd been in the First Division, and we played at the Manchester Uniteds and the Liverpools and Arsenals, and I think we were used to that sort of thing.
Pete's up here because he scored a very, very important goal in the Anglo-Italian Cup competition.
Yeah, it was against Verona.
It was only one,
yeah.
But how important was it?
Well, we're through 2 down, and it got towards the end of the game, and I made a forward venture down the right-hand side. And Sonny had the ball on the left-hand side, inside the box. And he just looked up, and I made a run into the box, and I didn't have to move, just straight on my head. The keeper saved it, but I knocked the rebound in, and that made the score 3-3. Now, I didn't know, certainly, that I thought a point, but in those days, if you got a third goal, that'd give you an extra point. I'm claiming that.
It's right. It's right.
So that's how it was. But in the meantime, the legend Jimmy Armfield, from playing in that Verona game, took over at Bolton Wanderers, and Bob Stokoe came into Blackpool, and I had been released at Carlisle as a 16-year-old by Bob Stokoe, and the first thing he said to me was, we're going to be buying a right fullback. So he said, I think Jimmy Armfield wants you. So I went with Jimmy to Bolton, and I ended up playing 12 years at Bolton, over 400 games. So I didn't do so bad then.
That's a great story. That's a great story. Peter Nicholson, if you look in the annals of Blackpool Football Club, you know, he's not up there with 400, 300, 200 appearances. And you wonder why. Well, he was playing behind Jimmy Armfield, so it was a bit of a hard task to get into the first team. But he did half have a good career, 12 years at Bolton. How many games? 600 games?
No, 400.
Sorry, 400. I'd have taken 6. Nobody would have argued. Right, okay, listen, back to the tournament. Now then, baby of the team, what are your memories?
Baby of the team, come on. I only left school about 3 weeks before. I know my memory was, initially was that there was a plane that crashed, taking off at Staines about 3 weeks before we was due to fly out to Italy. The only place I'd ever been really was Blackpool. You know, we used to come here for our holidays and that, and it was one of them. Next minute you're on the plane to Italy to play 2 games, which we obviously won or we drew, and we got to the final. As the guy says, it was a little bit on the warm side. You know, the pitches were a little bit on the firm side. And the funny thing was that I'm not medical at all, but when you're popping salt tablets down, it didn't seem right somehow, you know. I'm thinking, you don't want salt tablets, surely you need water, you know. But yeah, it was. I always remember one of the first corners that we got, and I was stood, as you do, waiting for the cross. And this guy just walked up to me, like, you know, and then within a second I was on the floor, and he just gave me an elbow, you know. And
was his name Gary Medine?
I don't know who it was. It was some bandit, some cheat. I mean, he hit me, and it was like, oof, I've gone. And I looked up, and I got up like, and I think, where's he gone? You know, being hard and that. And I couldn't believe it. He ran over to the referee and he stood next to him like that. And I'm thinking, what do I do now? And he's, you know, and that's what he did. He ran over and stood next to the referee, so I couldn't get at him, like, you know. And it was a joke. But I mean, I was a kid. I was 17. I was playing a game that I loved to play with one of my heroes, Hattie. I know. I bring it up every time, but I watched David at Bolton when my gran used to take me to watch Bolton Wanderers. And Hattie played right back, centre back, and I used to make her feel real good when we were in the bath after dinner. I said to Hattie, I used to watch you at Bolton. How old are you now? But yeah, great lad. And as he says, it was a great camaraderie, a great bunch of lads, even for a young'un, you know, because I was like 17 and I was learning the game, and there was a lot to learn, but I was learning it from some great players like Mickey, goal scorer, Atty, defender. Dennis, he played as well, and Peter obviously made a great career for himself. Greeny, Hutchie, Terry Oak, you know, we had some crackers. How we got relegated, I don't know. But yeah, it was a great club in those days. It was a great club. We worked hard for each other.
Who brought you to Blackpool, Alan?
It was a guy called Roy Hartle. He was obviously the chopper. He used to play for Bolton Wanderers. He's a very well-spoken guy, and he initially brought me for the trials down at Squires Gate.
Still the same?
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's right, yeah. And then eventually final trial on Bloomfield, which I was lucky enough to get picked up on. And then, you know, 12 months later I was playing with the boys at
sunning yourself out in Italy.
Yeah, sort of, yeah.
Getting back to the tournament, Dennis, just give me one great memory that you've got of the tournament. You know, obviously there wasn't just the final. There were 2 games at home, 2 games away. There must be something that sticks in your mind.
There is, but I have to reiterate what all the boys have said. Blackpool team at the time had Tony Green, Tommy Hutchison, Jimmy Armfield, Alan Suddick, world-class players. Believe me, all of them. And they had probably 3 8 out of 10 performers every week. Mr. Hatton here, Bill Bentley, Terry Alcott, Glyn James, Mickey Burns, the goal scorer. Thank you, Peter. How that team got relegated, I don't know. I blame the manager, Mr. Stoker, who I really did not like, and he did not like me. But one of my memories being very proud to play for Blackpool, coming from Mearside, council estate, didn't know nothing, never watched Blackpool because I played all the time. And we were playing in this tournament, and we went over to Italy, and you read your thing, and we were on something like £20 a goal we scored. So not only is Peter my hero for getting a draw, he got us 20 extra quid. So we played away in Verona, and we actually won 4-1. And the man I don't like put me on. For some reason he left me out, but that was an indiscretion we'll leave alone. And I scored within 2 minutes, and I didn't think, oh, that's good. It was a good goal, fair volley from a long way. I just thought, 20 bloody quid, I can't believe it. We actually won that game 4-1, and it was like that. But the lads were fantastic. They looked after us younger ones, Alan, Peter, myself, Clive Natteras, and it was a privilege to play with those guys.
Well, I think that's the last word on the subject. A privilege to play with those guys. Thank you, guys. It's been a pleasure listening to some of your memories. Thank you. Just before the presentation, I think we've got a message from one of the players who couldn't be here tonight, Mr. Steve Harrison.
Hiya troops, hope you're all well and fit and keeping up the elixirs and potions and lotions that keep us going and keep us alive. The joints and the aches and the pains and the osteoarthritis, we've all got it. I hope you're all well, and just thinking back to those times in the Anglo-Italian Cup, and my great friend Alan Aisco was the making of him, really. What a player he was, but highly underestimated. And we were a good side, really. Anyway, my memories of the Anglo-Italian Cup have been sat in about 10 dugouts. I sat in more dugouts than Viscount Montgomery. And me scoring the 10th goal against Lanerossi Vicenza at home, where the keeper took his gloves off and walked off in disgust. And I was running around the pitch like a maniac, scored my first goal for my hometown club. And everyone else was brought to tears. 10 goals, my 10th goal I thought was the most important thing in the world. Anyway, have a good night. I'm sorry I can't be there, lads. Well, crack a few balls sometime else. All right, lads. Have a nice evening, and God bless you all. Bye-bye now.
There are few in today's footballing world that may be aware of the existence of the Anglo-Italian Cup. The tournament was the brainchild of Italian football agent Luigi Peronacci, who, based in London, was keen to bridge the gap between English and Italian football.
Well, there you go. I hope you all enjoyed that trip down memory lane. Tommy, great to see you back at Blackpool Football Club. I think I recall seeing you maybe 10, 15 years ago. You were at an event, and it was a real privilege to see you at that event, and it's even more so tonight with the gathering that we've got of former players. Quick memory from the Anglo-Italian yourself, any memories?
I think with Anglo-Italian, is it on? Yeah, was it was a change. It was a relief from playing league football, and I think it made a few players realise that they could actually play at a higher level if from Italy that was the best. And I think myself and Tony and Suddy and people like that realised, you know, although we're at Blackpool and everybody thinks they're a lower club, we still had talented players.
It was great to have the Anglo-Italian, but of course it was, you know, such a loss to us to get relegated that season.
Yeah, that was a downer. But in those days, there wasn't sort of a big influx of money that you can go out and buy better players or players that would boost your squad up. It was just a case of make do with what you've got. In those days, the chairmans and directors weren't the Saudis or what have you to put money in the club.
Very true, and of course we had our own Mr. Cartmel, who on certainly the second occasion he didn't do the club any favours whatsoever. Anyway, enough of that. Let's talk about Hutch, hard work and belief, the Tommy Hutchison story. So What's the title all about?
Just before you get to that, there was one lad, Tony knows him, and probably a few of the lads will know him. A little lad called Derek Fontaine, who was an old friend. He was a painter and decorator. Well, he was, yeah, sort of. And he used to always come down to the cafe on the corner and have a bacon sandwich at his lunchtime with us and everything. And I got very friendly with him. And when somebody said, was there any fans on the pitch? If there's one of the books that are out when John Craven's holding the cup up and Derek Fontaine's head's on the front of it, he could get where mice couldn't get. Honestly, he could not. And he would disappear from me for years, and then he would turn up and he'd have a bag of videos or something. And I went down to Windsor with the special needs kids with the Welsh team. They were all Down syndrome, and it was Scotland, England, Ireland and Wales. And what we did, it was before the Charity Shield, we went on the pitch and we all had a little exercise on, with a little shooting and passing with all the kids on each one. And he turns up, honestly, he was like a bad penny. He'd turn up, what's happening? Because he was from London. And he come down and he says, it's boiling here. The next minute he disappears, he comes back with a big bag of cans of Coke and everything for the kids. They're needing a drink. And I says, well, what about the England squad? And oh, to hell with them. Let them look after themselves. But that's what he was like. He would just turn up and he would be different class. When we went to Wembley and we had the presentation, we got and we were told, and we only had so many, you got an armband to get into Wembley with your squad. And it was me and a lad called Malcolm Brown who run the special needs school in Wales. He had these armbands and he says, the only thing is I've not got one for Derek. I says, don't worry about that, I'm telling you now. And he was really upset because he's been great with the kids and everything. We'll need to get him something. I says, I'm telling you, forget about it. So we goes up to on the day, we goes up to Turnstile that we're to go to for the Welsh squad. We're going to go in. As we're going in, who's standing inside? Derek, with his camera box. He'd gone in and told them, oh, by the way, I'm the Welsh photographer. I'm having to take all the pictures for the Welsh team. And he actually had the boy from BT carrying his box. And we went along and we went in and they said, we're definitely told, like you're told at Wembley, don't go on the pitch, you're not allowed, you're only so many. He was on the pitch kicking balls about for the kids and everything. And then at the end, the kids all went up the steps to get their pictures taken as they were going up with the cup with us they all got a medal. And all went up. And the boy from the top brass there from BT, he had the camera, just like that picture there, sat up right now. In a bit, down a bit, and I could see him at the side. He's got a camera set up at the side, in the side, right, ready, 1, 2, and just as he said it, Derek says, everybody this way, and everybody just turned, and the boy was left without a picture. But that was the type of lad, and he went to every game, all the Blackpool games, and again, he died about 2 years ago. I used to go up and see him, and he was from Dundee, but he was just one of those, he can get to everything. Loved the lads, loved coming down and having a cup of tea and that with him. I can remember in the pre-close season, he was a painter decorator and he had this thing in his mind. Was it Roland Jones was the bookies? Mm. He did a deal with them that he would do every bookie's office for £40 at night. So what's the knock on my door? Hutchie, you wouldn't give us a hand, would you? Because he knew I was a painter and decorator. And it got to the stage where we would go in, and he was getting £40 a night. We'd do 3 a night, we'd go in, and all he did was mix the paint up and put the sheets down, and I did all the painting. He was unbelievable, but a lovely, lovely lad.
Well, that day at the final, and he got his picture on the book. Yeah. And do you know what? It's great because I've looked at that book and we've all seen that picture, and I've always wondered,
the only one shooting.
Who is that guy? Who is he?
He had only one shoe on because he climbed it. There was a fence. He climbed the fence and the police grabbed his leg and they took his shoe off and he just kept going and he got on.
Well, there we go. We all know we've got a story behind that face now, and let's talk about your book. Let's talk about your book, Hutch, Hard Work and Belief. What's that all about? Where did that come from?
It came from the gentleman that's standing over there, who was a ardent Coventry supporter, and he phoned me up and asked me if he fancied if I did a book, and I mean, me doing a book, it was like, I mean, I used to struggle to write home to my mum, and but he's a staunch Coventry fan, and I was his favourite player for his own fault, and he says yeah. So he went ahead and researched it, but the first thing that the publishers wanted is, why are you doing the book? And the one thing I wasn't doing the book for was money. The only reason I wanted to do the book was for my grandkids, because my grandkids never saw me play. Well, they saw me play, but Grandad, why are you always on black and white? You know, so they saw it film, and obviously my sons and my daughter, they kept them all informed of how I was and who I was. So they knew I was pretty talented at one time. And when I wrote the book was written about that picture there is actually the end of the book. And the Hard Work and Belief was I chose that title because if you read the book, there's certain parts in it where we've all had it. Everybody, even talking to the lads tonight, been at clubs, got rejected, got let down, get told you're no good, whatever, is something that I used actually when I went into schools to work, is to actually change the kids' minds on getting rejected and moving on. And I had a letter when I was at Oldham from Jimmy McElroy, was the manager, and he said that he thought I had quite good skill, but maybe wasn't fit and wasn't strong enough to play in the league football, which I went on to play 1,000 league games, which is a British record for an outfield player. So I said to the kids, no, you need to, after they take I don't really like bragging about that, but I needed to for the kids, because they had to realise that you can still get a knockback and still achieve. And that was why it was named Hard Work and Belief. And as I said, that picture there, that is the end of the book. What's in the book is how I got there. And purely because I believed that I would play for Scotland, which I know Tony was the same, he played before me, but you always want to play for your country, right? And I've played in cup finals, but to play in a cup final, which I've found out along the way, you need to be lucky. The worst game that we ever had was against Peterborough at Peterborough when we got to the final, when we got on our way to the final. So you have to be lucky. But to play for your country, you have to be good. That was a big difference for me in the book. And again, the book's all about how I was brought up. And again, a lot of the lads in here, talking to Bill Bertie and Tony and that, were all brought up in poorer areas. And I got something wrong when I mentioned to him about the book that we were poor. We weren't poor. Poor was somebody that went to school for us with Wellingtons on their feet in the summer. They were poor. They didn't have much. We weren't poor in the sense that we didn't have fancy phones and what have you, but we had shoes on our feet, we had clothes on our back, and we had food on the table. And again, you always wanted to strive to get away from that, to do better than, I'd love to do better than, not better than your parents, but you'd like to do better to help your parents, which in the end I was able to do, which a lot of footballers do. That's the first person you look after, because they're the ones that looked after you. And that was the whole reason of the book. And I was really disappointed last week I've done it at Coventry 2 or 3 times. Kevin will probably tell you about the reception that I get when I go to Coventry. And they're all pure fans, like you here tonight, like the lads I was with the other night in Manchester. They are genuine fans that have followed them when they had nothing, when they made nothing. Now that the glory days are here, they still want to hear about the stories of the old days on what it was like to play. For me, it was always, what was it like to play under such managers and everything? And that was the reason I spoke to Tony about today. And I've answered that question so many times. Who's the best manager you ever had? And I've had a lot of good managers. I don't think I've had really any bad ones. Well, the bad ones I didn't listen to anyway. But we were very lucky in the start of our careers that we had Stan Mortensen. Because, not because he's Stan Mortensen the footballer, but because he's Stan Mortensen the man. Because when we came down, there was 3 of us, Tony, me and Henry Mowbray. We all come down round about the same time for about 30 quid. And when we came down, he was one of those that tactics, everything like that, useless. Hadn't a clue. But there's not one player that I've ever played with I've heard call him or wouldn't give his heart out for him, wouldn't go out there and let him down. His team talks at half time, and I can remember that it was at Huddersfield. Another 45 minutes and we'll all be pissed again. But I've had better team talks than that and never listened to them. And you're thinking, well, that sounds good, that's all right. And that's what he was like. And I can remember once, we came, Tony and Henry and I, we used to get into a bit of bother in the digs, like, nothing silly, but it would be, and we come in one day, and I think it was Alan Skirton. He says, the gaffer wants to see you 3. And I thought, oh. And of course you're thinking back the next night or the weekend, what happened? No. Was your room in a mess? No. You've no way at the bed? No, that's all. Go down and see him, and you had to go down this, that was a terrible walk. You go round the pitch, and you used to go down the side underneath the stand to his office. And you go in the stand, you go into his office, and he's sat there. And the 3 of us are shitting ourselves like, man. Right then. And he put 3 tenors on the thing, and he says, you 3, get yourselves back home. You seem to know when you were homesick. We were 19s, 20s, but it was the first time we'd been away from home. And it's a big thing when, no matter what age you are, when you're away and you're on your own, and when things aren't going well, playing-wise or anything, you can't go to your mum and dad and anything, you feel it hard to talk to any other players, is that he knew straight away, you need to get away. And we're chuffed in off, this is it. And by the way, and he's what, you fancy any of these ties? And he had a couple, somebody must have given him a load of ties. So we've all got a tie each, Greenie, me and Henry. So the lads are all in the dressing room waiting now. Oh, they'll have got done. They're going in. And of course we walked in and said, Tony, what do you think of your tie, Tony? Do you think that one's all right? You bastards, you've got away with it again. But that was the manager. Now, tactically, or maybe not tactically so much, but tactically for me it was always John Bond. Dress-wise, behaviour-wise, coaching-wise, training-wise, was Bob Stokoe. For me. Doesn't fit everybody, but for me, everything had to be done right. You had to look after yourself, you had to dress well, everything had to be spot on. I can remember the first time he came to train with us. I think I can't remember where it was. He came on the Friday. We were training on the Friday. He played in the 5-a-side with us, and he knew every one of our names to play and pass to. He'd done his homework, and I held that all the way through my career. Even when I went to Hong Kong, when I was in Hong Kong, I played, and the humidity was terrible. And we would go out, and the lads would say, well, the van will pick us up. We were stayed on the Kowloon side, and we'd come across to the big stadium, and there would T-shirts and their shorts and everything, because it was warm. And I'd played a couple of games in Asses to Irene Asses. I can't go like that. I says, I don't feel as if I'm going to my work. And from then on, I went in a collar and tie and a suit. And I used to take an extra shirt, because after the game, you just couldn't get dry. But for me, that did the part that Bob Stoker sort of taught me. And I felt that was part of I needed to do to get me right to play the game. And I had a few quips. I got nicknamed by the Chinese players as Mr. Gentleman because of it. And the thing was that we played in one of the cup finals, and we went out to have a look at the pitch, and one of the lads, Davy Anderson, I think it was, played for Eastern against us. I played for Boulevard. And he says, big man, he says, are you going to a wedding? I says, no, I bought this with the last game we played against you. I says, this was the bonus money. As it happened, we did beat them again in the cup. But that was a thing that when you're coming up, when I went to John Bond, it was a different type of thing, tactically. If I'd have gone to John Bond earlier in my career, I would have been a better player. I went to him when I was 34, but definitely if I'd have gone to him earlier, I would have been a better player, because he made me think different about the game, and maybe I was a bit, well, the lads know that have played with me, at times I was a bit like a headless chicken when I got the ball. You know, there had to be, and I can remember Bob Stokoe saying to me that the reason that Tony went to Newcastle and I didn't was because Tony always had an end product. It was a good pass, a good cross or anything. So that gave me something to work on, and I went to Coventry a year after away. Billy Rafferty coming the other way. So he actually nearly ruined my career.
Can I just tell you all that earlier on, before the night got going, we were stood downstairs, and I said to Tommy, I want to just have a bit of a chat with you, anything that we can sort of talk about. And he gave me 3 or 4 things which I've got on the list here, which I didn't realise that I was just going to be sat here listening to you, but what an absolute pleasure and a privilege to do that. I've not had to ask you anything, and you've just absolutely been a joy to listen to.
I think the biggest problem I had is when I went to Man City, and they wanted me to come to the game, but they didn't want me to sell the books. And I says, I haven't done the book to make money. I've made the book so that people like yous can get Tommy Hutchison to sign that actual book personally. And that was it. No, not going to the shop and buying it, and you know, it's for me to give them something back by just putting my name on the book to them, that they've been watching me all the, and when I was at Coventry, I must have signed about 400 books. 400 books, because they were saying, the boys coming up to me, I never saw you play, but my dad said you were a good player. You know, and could you sign this book? And I went up there, and I went round, and I went round all the hospitality rooms and everything, which had about 200 people, signed a few autographs and everything. And the worst room I was in was the boardroom. I went into the board, we played Blackpool. I went into the boardroom, the chairman didn't know who I was. And I'm going in, and I was lucky, I got saved, because the two Blackpool directors recognised me. And he says, Tommy, if you want, come and do it at our place. We welcome you down there. And they were still looking at me, who is he? And that's why talking to people like you, they're true supporters. Like last night at Manchester, there was only 20, 30 of them, but they follow them week in, week out. It doesn't matter whether you win or lose, they're still going to be there week in. They're not going to worry about trophies or anything. And I think that I got more heart out of that. Then Kevin, he organised, well, he asked me nicely if I would come to a walk-in football session on the Monday after I'd been there Thursday night, Friday, Saturday. This was on the Monday. I went down and stayed, and I went to the walk-in football, and it was just, it was the best of the week. Although I was well treated in Coventry, is that some of them had had stroke, some of them had a lot of bother with their legs, probably. And Tony was telling me about a couple of them. They put their shin guards on first thing in the morning, and they're not playing till Wednesday. They're all wrapped up, but they could not believe that I was coming to play with them. And I joined in. I fell over a few times, mine, but I was playing with one lad, and he had a shot at goal, and he says, "Go, well done, that's good." And he turned to his pal, he says, "Tommy's just said well done to me. I can't believe that. I used to go and watch him play." And that was the sort of reception you got. And the one thing that really did it for me, there was one girl come up to me, she said, and nearly every of them had the picture taken, they all signed, I signed all the books for them, and he come up and she said, "Would you do a FaceTime with my dad? Because he's had cancer and he's not been well, and he's a bit down at the moment." I said, "No problem, eh?" So come up, she gave the book, she said I could sign the book first though. So I signed the book, and she said, "Dad, what have I told you? I don't want to speak to anybody. Why can't you leave me alone?" And she says, "I think you might want to speak to this lad," because I was his favourite player. And he's about the same age as me as well. And he just cracked up. He just cracked up. And I says, "Look, you got to get your chin up," I says, "because I've seen them train." I says, "They're going to need us next week, you and me." And the smile on his face made my whole 3-4 days in the travelling down there. God, it took me 9 hours to get down. But that was well worth it.
Tommy, there is just one thing that we talked about, which I do want to ask you, because I want you to tell everybody. The Anglo-Italian Cup, it wasn't your only European final, was it? Don't hang me out to dry. Cup Winners' Cup.
Yeah, that's another record.
Phew, thank God for that. I thought we were having a moment then.
The thing was, like, you're playing for Man City, and if you qualified, you get into the Cup Winners' Cup at that time, right? So we miss out. I go down to Swansea, you play in the Welsh Cup, and you get into Europe. And I could remember we played Panathinaikos in the Cup Winners' Cup when I was 42. And I says to the gaffer, he says, "Could you imagine what that boy's saying to his fullback? If he goes past you tonight, you're coming off." He's 42. And as it happened, I played reasonably well in both games, and we got beat on the away goals. But it was a great experience. And again, something that you want to play at the highest level for as long as you can. And I played till I was 46. And the reason I played till I was 46 is because I wasn't able to play till I was 47. And the wife wouldn't let me.
Tommy, I don't think there's anything. Hello. What's going on?
Hold up to your mouth.
What's going on?
Yeah.
I don't think there's any more that I can add to that 15-20 minutes that we've just heard from Tommy. All I will say, it's been a pleasure having you here. You certainly can in a minute. And Tommy, he has kept saying all night, and he means it so genuinely, so sincerely about his book. It's not about him making money, it's about him having the pleasure of signing a book for you if you're here and you've bought one. I know a few people have bought one tonight. You do still have a chance before he goes tonight. Please, let's have a big hand for Tommy, and then he's going to have the last word.
Yeah, I think the main thing about the whole night is about the Anglo-Italian. But I think when Tony will back me with this, he was unfortunate through injury. But if you get a good grounding when you're young, that proved that it'll take you all the way through your career. And I couldn't have done that without players like Davy Hatton and Bill Bentley and Glenn and Jimmy Armfield and all those, because you hold them up there. Whereas now I found it when I went into coaching, the kids they don't sort of respect that hierarchy now, and maybe because the older players don't show it as much. But I just felt when I came here, I couldn't have landed in a better nest. Luckily with the manager, and luckily with the roommates I had with Tony and Henry, where, you know, without them, without friends, you don't go anywhere.
Once again, please show your appreciation for Tommy Hutchinson.